All right, we are now being joined by UFC middleweight, and as we have seen on social media during this global pandemic, a very talented musician. You've seen him shredding on the saxophone more than likely at this point, plus he's coming off a big win a little over a month ago over Duran win. Gerald Meerschaert is here. Gerald, good to see you, man. How are you?
Mike, glad to be here. Great to see you. I'm doing great.
Congratulations on the win, obviously. We haven't spoken since that happened, but you got the submission in the third round. With everything going on in the world, does it seem like that fight was forever ago?
Yeah, it's been a long time. It's weird giving it right now because I'm still in my head. It kind of feels like I'm still on my small break, even though it's been forever, right? But after the fight, I didn't really get a chance to go back to the gym like I normally would. So it as long ago as it feels, it's kind of like I never got to go back. So it's like, oh, yeah, I'm still on my rest period. But, man, I am itching to get back in the gym. We need to open that stuff up soon.
So besides entertaining the masses with your musical knowledge and musical talent, how has quarantine life been in the Meerschaert household?
There's not a lot going on, I'm going to be honest. It's pretty boring. I will say I don't understand all these people that I keep seeing like I cleaned my house for the 1300th time. I've cleaned my house like half a time. I haven't even done it a full time once. I don't know what you guys do for fun, but get a new hobby.
Have you tackled any projects or anything like that? Is there anything that you maybe haven't done that you've wanted to do that you've been putting off for a while with all this extra free time?
Not really. I've done some yard work. It was, man, living in Wisconsin, I tell you, it's ridiculous. Last week we had a day where it was like 70 and it was like upper 50s for the other part of the week. So I got a new motorcycle recently, so I got a lot of riding in. And then this week it's freaking snowing. You know what I mean? It's like 36. So it didn't stick, but it was coming down. So last week I got to ride a little. You know, I got some brush in the backyard. I was burning in the fire pit just to get rid of it. And then this week it's just been back inside because, you know, it's still winter.
Yeah, you might be able to hear in the background, we're working on some projects ourselves. We've got chainsaws going in the yard trying to cut down some trees. But, you know, fun fact, I was actually a trumpet player when I was a young buck. I was pretty good, too. I was a first chair. But then when I got to middle school, our music director pretty much told me that, you know, listen, Mike, I know you like sports and all, but you're probably not going to be able to play baseball in the spring if you're part of the band. And I was like, absolutely not. I just can't do that. So unfortunately, that was it for my musical career. When did you start playing the saxophone?
So for me, I knew that like most schools, they like kind of forced you to play clarinet first because I still don't know what it is. Like, obviously, I was attracted to playing the saxophone when I was young, and I still think it's a pretty cool thing. But a lot of people I've heard randomly, they're like, oh, man, you play the saxophone? That's so cool. I always wanted to do that. Never occurred to me that anyone would actually, like, want to play the saxophone that wasn't, you know, like a grade schooler. But I did it early, so I took lessons in the summer during fourth grade so that I knew how to play and had my saxophone already, so they couldn't force me to play the clarinet. Not that there's anything wrong with clarinet, it's just I knew what I wanted to do. So pretty much from fourth grade on through high school, I played a little bit in college. A buddy of mine, his dad owned a music store, and like they had a service called Power Audio where they would, you know, all the local bands and stuff, all the old timers knew them. They would all play everywhere and set up all the audio equipment. So I helped out with that. I got to play in a couple like just small gigs here and there, just hop in with the guys. So that was pretty cool.
Who knew that your saxophone playing would be so useful in such a dark time? You've been able to brighten up a lot of spirits. You know, did you expect the combination of, you know, the 1980s baseball player mustache, the George Michael dance moves, and the saxophone playing would be such a big hit?
You know, when I was first going to do that, my idea was everyone see me play the saxophone. Well, not everyone, but a lot of people saw me play it before already. So I was like, what can I do this to really make it ridiculous? And mom jeans with the sunglasses and a mustache was pretty much as ridiculous as I could get without, you know, donning some sort of apparatus. So that's what I went with.
Those are like the best videos. So if you haven't seen them, I highly recommend you go and check out Gerald's Twitter page and Instagram pages. They're all there. They're fantastic. But let's go back to UFC 248. You get the win over Deron Winn. It was a fight that you wanted. There was a bit of a story there, and in the end, you guys had a hell of a fight, and you were able to get the finish in the third round. I know how self-critical you all can be in this sport, but sort of looking back at that night, were you happy overall with that performance?
I'd be lying if I said I wasn't. You know what I mean? I was coming off a tough loss, and it always feels good to get a win. I always want to go out there and make it look easy. You know what I mean? I want to beat someone up and look good doing it. But I got caught with a couple punches, and just being honest with myself, if you look at all my fights, whether I have to or I don't have to, for better or worse, I make every fight a fight, if that makes sense. There's never like a one-sided beatdown. I always, end up putting myself in a precarious situation where I have to kind of battle back or fight through some sort of adversity. And, the truth of it is, as cool as it'd be to have like a clean one-punch knockout, I like fighting people. So, I like getting in there and mix it up. I saw a couple people like, how'd you let a dude that short hit you? And I'm like, man, I'm not there to play tag and run away. I want to fight somebody. So of course, if you're gonna get in the kitchen and be a chef, you're gonna get a little sauce on the apron, and I'm all good with that.
You did say, we spoke heading into that fight, that you hadn't been overly impressed with Deron and what he had done in his career up to that point. After sharing a little over 12 minutes with that man in the cage, did he surprise you at all? Has your stance changed on that?
He improved a lot. That was definitely. And of course, I'm going to be a little bit biased because it was my fight. But I feel, even from the outside looking in, that was the best Deron Winn we had seen in the octagon or fight MMA, period. He came very well prepared. I think he handled the body shots a lot better than I thought he would. He still backed off, but, he didn't drop and, he didn't gas himself out nearly as bad as I thought he was going to. And it was, a pretty high-paced fight. So, I think that's the best he's looked. I think, had I fought the Deron Winn, say, from the Spice Lee fight or the Darren Stewart fight, I think I would have finished him, in the first or second round easy. I think I would have caught him with one of those punches, or he would have gassed himself out, and I would have dug the body, and he would have just keeled over. But, like I said, he put in the work, he came prepared, and he gave me a hell of a fight.
You guys had some beef heading into that fight, obviously. Did you get a chance to speak with him after the fight in the cage or in the back? And if so, what was that conversation like?
I mean, like I said, I even said before the fight, once the fight's over, it's done for me. You know what I mean? I don't know the dude personally. I hold no grudge against anyone really. He didn't really, we fought each other, so he hit me, I hit him back. He didn't say nothing about my family or anything. So after the fight, I went up to him, I told him, hey man, that was a hell of a fight. I know I specifically said, I was like, I know I talk a lot of bullshit, but you're one tough son of a bitch. And I was like, that was it for me. I had nothing for respect for him after that. So, I'm sure he feels the same way.
Since your fight, obviously things have been pretty wild with the coronavirus. Looking back at it, had your fight been booked any later, who knows when or if it would have even happened. So is that kind of crazy to think about, considering how much things have changed over the last month?
Yeah, man, I tell you, I count my blessings every day that not only did I get in, when I could still fight in front of a crowd, but it was the last fight where we had a full crowd. They saw, you had Brasilia right after that, but it was nobody in the crowd. And if I have to go fight in the Apex, like Dana White keeps talking about, we're going to start having shows there, I'll gladly do it. I got no problem not having a crowd, but it's nice, it's always nice to put on for the fans live, for one. And two, just the timing of it happening right before kind of financially helps out a lot, get through however long this takes. You know what I mean? Because if there's a lot of guys that haven't fought since last year even, and they're going to be in a pretty bad way. So I count my blessings every day for that.
The UFC moving forward at these events, it's been met with mixed reactions. And you mentioned fighters, some haven't fought in a year. They need the money. It's natural. A lot of people are out of work right now. I feel for the fighters and have felt for them since the beginning of all of this. But this has been met with two different sides of the spectrum. But what are your thoughts on the UFC trying to move forward during this pandemic, especially since all the other sports leagues have shut down for now?
Yeah, well, clearly I'm going to be all for it, right? I'm a fighter. And for us, it's a one-on-one sport. We saw Chael still had his submission underground with, a cameraman, a ref, and two guys going at it himself, being a commentator. So I feel like numbers-wise, it's possible if they take the proper precautions. I understand the knee-jerk reaction. It's like, well, you're going to make guys travel and do this and do that, and it's not just putting them at risk, it's putting other people on risk, so on and so forth. But I have faith in the UFC that if they're going to do this, they're going to go through the proper channels. They're going to have people check the way they're supposed to. And again, in a perfect world, we can all just stay home. No one has to do anything, and everyone gets whatever they want. But unfortunately, that's not how it works. And especially the way things are going right now, you can't just keep printing money and giving out stuff. And people haven't even got a lot of stuff yet. So if we can stay working, give everybody else some semblance of normalcy, give people at home something to watch live, I think it's a good thing. But again, I get that there's pros and cons to everything, and I understand the reaction of you got to shut this down and this and that.
You've probably seen it, as has everybody else at this point. There's been a massive backlash towards the MMA media space once 249 was postponed. It created this really bad ripple effect with a lot of the different spaces within the sport, between the fighters and the managers and the coaches, fans, so forth and so on.
Right.
From your perspective, how do you think, honestly, the media has handled everything as a whole? Do you subscribe to the theory that UFC 249 isn't happening this Saturday because of the media?
I don't think it's because of the media. You know what I mean? I think even if they played it close to the chest and withheld the location, up until the day, it's possible they might have been able to pull it off, but I highly, highly doubt it. I don't think that information stays completely confidential up until fight day. All right? I think that's impossible. So at one point or another, it's going to get out. People are going to make a stink. It's going to stop. I understand fighters and coaches' reactions to some of the, quote unquote MMA media, because they're all they're hearing is, don't put this fight on. It's ridiculous, blah, 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 blah. But they're kind of ignoring or foregoing the fact that everyone in the media is like, we want the fighters to get paid. You should take care of them. But part of taking care of them is not, in their opinion, not putting us at risk and, just giving us, supplemental income or something. I don't know what the suggestion would be, but that's the idea. So it's they're on our side, 100%. But most of us, we're going to back our guy, and Dana, especially us in the UFC, and we want to fight. We want to go there and fight. So I think it's it's not an apples and oranges thing, but it's you're arguing two different points. The fighters are getting mad because they're oh, screw you guys, you're trying to shut it down. You don't know, it's you don't love the fighters, blah, blah, blah. And the media's we got your back. We're just telling this guy that he needs to stop, being crazy. But we're kind of nuts, too. If you're a fighter, you got a couple screws loose. So we're going to back our guy. So I think it's, like any other thing, it's a breakdown of communication and a big misunderstanding. And, one thing I will say, and I was talking to Bronstetter about this a little bit, especially in the MMA media, it's a very interesting space in the sense that, a lot of people are getting their information via Twitter feeds and stuff. So even if people write articles, you're going to share the link to that article and it's going to get viewership because you put it on social media, right? It's not like people are, back in the day, I would go through the rounds, I would check Bloody Elbow, I'd go on the Underground, I'd check Share Dog, go on MMA Junkie, you make the rounds through the pages. Now we've got names and faces. I'm going on Twitter. And from even a journalistic standpoint, a lot of people are struggling with separating the journalism part of it and, the opinion part of it on both sides, because they're taking whatever that person says, maybe they report on something, but also give their opinion. And, I think personally that you should have a clear separation, and there are some people that do that, but then there are some people that'll give you the facts and then they give you your opinion right after that, which is completely fine. But it makes it harder for you to discern, are you writing an opinion piece or are you just giving us information? And then if you do give your opinion at all, especially on Twitter, it's a freaking dumpster fire, man. You say one thing, whatever polar opposite side you're on, you're going to get attacked. And if you're somewhere in the middle, both sides are going to attack you to try to sway you one way or the other. So I don't think there's really winning in that situation. But I think that, again, it's just kind of a funky thing where It's not like, here are the facts. This is what happened. I'm not going to say anything. Everyone wants to hear that person's opinion on what's happening.
Yeah, that's really well said. I agree with you. I think, obviously with the fighters getting paid, that was one big point of contention for me. Like, no one wants to see fighters losing money. Nobody celebrated the fact that this event was postponed. Like, I didn't see that anywhere. I think the big point of contention, and I was kind of indifferent through the whole thing. Like, did I think it should have been postponed? Yeah. Was I on top of the mountain screaming, postpone this event every day? No, I wasn't. If they feel that they can make it happen and do it safely and everyone comes out of there healthy and everyone gets paid, I'm cool with that. I think the biggest point of contention, at least for what I was sitting, was you say you're going to go above and beyond to make these events safe, and that's great, but how are you going to do that? Like, where's the transparency? Like, where's the specifics? And I think that's where me and a lot of other people in the media were coming from, is like, that's great if you're going to make this happen and pull it off, but how are you going to do it,
Exactly. And unless you, like, here's our whatever 12 bullet points of how it's going to be safe, X, Y, and Z, until you present that, you can't really say that. And I'll give, I'm going to give Dana some leeway anyway, because obviously I agree with him. But even still, someone running a business, you can't just put out something that's like, okay, we're doing it by these steps, period. That's the way it's going to be, flat out. Stuff's going to change. Everything's always in flux. And you might not even know until it gets closer. But not even giving just a general outline of how that's going to be physically possible. Because, maybe you don't know, and he doesn't know. He's still figuring it out yet. It doesn't sit well with a lot of people. And again, I think it's very important to be able in any instance to listen to what someone with your opposite viewpoint or even slightly different viewpoint is saying and take that information in. Like, again, I'm always going to want to fight. You know what I mean? I'm a fighter. I feel like I'm invincible. I know I'm not. Like, the skeptical part of me that believes in numbers and science, I know for a fact that it's probably not a good idea. But like I said, I'm out of my freaking mind, Mike. I want to fight somebody in a cage. I don't care if it's on freaking Mortal Kombat Island. Sign me up. I'll freaking parachute in that mofo. I'll skydive for the first time in my life just so I can fight somebody. So again, we both know that that's what I want to do. But I also understand that it's a very big possibility that that's not the best idea. So, you got to be open and willing to at least hear both sides. And, guess what? I might know for a fact that it's a bad idea, and I might still do it. You know what I mean? Going into fighting is probably not the best career move ever compared to what I could do with my life, but I did it anyway, so there you go.
So if your number is called upon to compete over the next month or two, you're in, right?
Oh, yeah. No, I'm there. It doesn't even matter. Like, I could have Dr. Fauci himself be like, this is a terrible idea. You should really stay home. And I'm like, yeah, you're right, as I'm walking out the door with my fight bag.
It's a strange time with all these unknowns. May 9th is targeted but not done yet. But, personally, I feel like this is going to happen. I feel like we're going to have fights on May 9th. That's just, I don't have any scientific evidence to back up my theory, but that's kind of how I feel it's going to go down. But in terms of what you want next, like if you were to get that phone call, what makes sense to you, once you do get back in there and fight? Is there anybody on your radar that you'd like to scrap it up with?
I did. Well, I shouldn't say call out. I wanted to fight Ian Heinisch because that was just a guy I knew was in the top 15. I thought that was a good fight. I saw before, and we're actually like in a group chat together too. It's like, I got nothing against the guy. I was just like, all right, you're in the top 15. I know who you are. I think it's a good matchup. I'll go with that one. I saw somewhere that he had signed a contract, and it wasn't me, so I was like, okay, he set up to fight somebody anyway, whatever. So anyone in the top 15, period, I'm more than happy to fight. Obviously, they're not going to put me against anyone in the top 5. I take it, you know what I'm saying? But I'm thinking, 15 to like 12 or 11, anyone in there, I'm down for it.
Have they approached you with anything yet?
No. And like I had like a very mild injury after my fight, so I still technically have to get cleared, you know what I mean? But May 9th might be kind of soon. I mean, I'd still do it if they said, hey, we need you May 9th. I'd be like, screw it. I'll just fight with all my other weapons. I don't care. But yeah, anyone 15 to 11, 10 if they'll let me, I'm down.
Bilal Muhammad is one of your teammates. He's also one of the best follows in the history of MMA social media. And I really feel for the guy not being able to fight because he's been on this card since the beginning, and then opponents falling out, couldn't get another one, and then all the other chaos went down. There's been so many hurdles that this guy continues to have to leap over just to get into the cage. And as of now, he doesn't have a fight on the books. Not sure how much you've spoken with Bilal due to the quarantine, but how has he handled all of this from the conversation that you have had with him?
I mean, it sucks, but, you know, that dude's a grinder. He's going to keep training and stay ready no matter what. But one thing I will say is that Bilal blowing up so much on Twitter has to be the single craziest thing to me in MMA history. Because I remember before, he had like no followers, and it's been the same MO from day one. He's just telling like the corniest freaking dad jokes every single day. And it's like, this is how he really is. I don't want anyone to think this is like a facade. Like, that dude talks like this. He'll say jokes like that every single day. So every day I'm hearing these corny jokes, and I'm like, just shaking my head. And like, I love dad jokes, but sometimes I'm like, dude, like, are you kidding me? People think this is funny. So like, I know him in person, and like, he's like all about, you know, the dry, sarcastic humor. And the delivery sometimes is great, and sometimes, you know, falls short on me. But I see him just doing it every single day, just how he would say it to like somebody in the gym, and people just keep eating it up. And I'm like, you guys are really gassing this dude up right now. Like, this is really working. I'm so happy for him, but it blows my mind every single day. I hop on there, Bilal says, you know, some stupid thing, and it's got 1,000 retweets, and I'm like, what am I doing with my life?
You're playing the saxophone. You're getting a lot of retweets too. But I mean, it's crazy seeing how much he, you know, has blown up on social media. I was interviewing him when he was in Titan FC, and then getting the UFC and so forth and so on, and just seeing his personality, more so evolve in the public eye over the years has just been crazy to watch. Right.
Well, and interesting point too. I was thinking about participating in with this in Ramadan. I'm not Muslim or very religious, you know, at all to speak of, but, you know, just to support the homie and like get myself to not be such a fatty during quarantine. So that's coming up. If I remember correctly, he said April 23rd or 25th, I think.
I guess 23rd.
And it's supposed to last a month. And then, you know, obviously he can tell you more about it, but you know, it's kind of the idea like Lent in Christianity, where you know take some stuff away to like appreciate better, but you basically don't eat or drink anything when the sun's out. So I think his rule was from like, I want to say something like 8 p.m. or something like that till 7:30 a.m. is like the only time you can consume any sort of sustenance. So I might have to hunker down and show some love for the homie on that one. I'll let you know how that goes. But that's another thing too, man. He needs to get a fight scheduled because he's trained for Ramadan before, but he had a gym to go to. Now training on your own and trying to do that, he's going to do it because that guy is like, I swear he gets superpowers when like the last time he trained in Ramadan, it was nuts. Like he knew he had to work so much harder that it like gave him extra strength, but it's going to be a trying time for him for sure.
Yeah, hopefully we can get him back in the octagon sooner rather than later. But appreciate the time. And before we let you go, like we said, we're trying to put smiles on people's faces here. We're trying to stay positive. I think you know where this is going. We're trying to keep the content moving here, give the people what they want.
I don't know what I don't have no idea what I'm completely unprepared and unaware of what you're talking about.
We got
I don't know what you mean. I don't have any songs in my song. I'll just, you know. All right,
well, let's do this. Let's do this right. Thank you, Gerald, for coming on. Always a pleasure to catch up. We'll be back with our next guest in a moment. But before we get to that, the musical stylings of Gerald Meerschaert.